Okay, so this right here was once one of the most popular things in America to do on a Friday night, drive-in movie theaters, which got really big in the 1950s where there were over 5,000 in the United States, making them arguably bigger than the entire movie industry, but then they completely collapsed in the 1970s. Now there's only 300 of them around. I'm just wondering why they died. To start this off, we gotta go back to the year 1895, where the Lumiere brothers create the first ever commercial film projector that can be sold to the masses, but for the first 10 years, it's not really used that much, where it was more of a novelty only shown at carnivals and festivals. In 1905, the first ever movie theater was created, which was called Nickelodeon in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where they were promising people movies for only a nickel. And these things got really popular really fast, where they went from 1 to 600 in a period of 5 years. And then by the year 1930, there were 19,000 movie theaters in the United States, and 50% of people were going at least once a month. The reason why half the population was going to movie theaters so often was because there was no TV, so this was the best form of entertainment for them. But at the same time, movie theaters were really cramped up, where the goal was to get as many people in there as possible, so not a lot of people liked the experience. It was that in 1933, a guy named Richard Hollinshead, based out of Camden, New Jersey, realized his mother never wanted to go to movie theaters because they were too cramped up, and he thought it'd be a better experience if people would just drive and they'd show the movie outdoors, so he created the first ever drive-in theater in 1933. First drive-in movie theaters were kind of a niche thing, but then they absolutely blew up in the 1950s because of the rise of cars. Because in 1933, with the first drive-in theater, there were only 21 million cars in the United States, but then cut to 1953, and there's now 54 million cars on the road, and this became a really ideal way to go to movies, where now 4,000 drive-in theaters were created in the 50s. What's even crazier was in the 1950s, a lot of people in the movie industry thought people would actually only go to see movies in drive-thrus going forward. And the reason was because drive-thrus during this period are making up 1/3 of the movie industry revenue, and also at the same time, the rise of TVs, where 9% of people had TVs in the year 1950, but it was at 90% by 1960. So because that, people thought they'd only go to see movies, it was more of an experience, and that experience involved being in a car. But then things started to change in the second half of the 20th century, the first one being the rise of malls, where malls became really big, where there were almost none of them in the 50s, but thousands by the 80s, and malls wanted movie theaters in there so people would come in and shop for other things, and movie theaters actually pay a lot less rent than any other store, where they get an 80-90% discount per square foot. So because that was really cheap to have movie theaters in malls. Drive-in theaters just don't have that luxury, but there's only one purpose for that land, and that's for people to watch movies. So the issue is they have to dedicate these large plots of land just to be drive-in theaters that don't generate the money that malls are generating. There's also just a massive issue with weather and seasonal concerns, where even though people are in their cars, they still don't like to go to drive-in theaters during the winter. And also at the same time, when people go to movie theaters the most, it tends to be during rainy days, which again are times people don't want to go to a drive-in theater. Then finally, there just became a massive perception problem, because what happened was a lot of teenagers would hook up there, adults would go there to have affairs, and families stopped going because there became this negative idea behind drive-in theaters that you just go and watch some teenagers make out. So not a lot of people started to go, and attendance dropped massively. So because of the number of drive-in theaters dropped from 5,000 in the United States to just 300 by the 1990s. Hey, I still got one by me I love in Middletown, New York, and with that, I'm Charles Perrault. Subscribe, learn something.